Okay, welcome out tonight. So we can talk about using Pizilla to find your ancestors and descendants in the tree. And if I can get this to advance, we'll be in business. Okay, before we start into the program itself, I did want to bring up one thing. This is strictly Bob Givens 101. This isn't anything that's official. But I've been doing a lot of thought, and it was really brought home this week because whenever I do a presentation on Pizilla, I usually spend about a week using Pizilla just, to get the feel for it again. And if I haven't been into it for a while and to see how things are going. And I've been noticing, even with Pizilla, as I do research, that for families here in the U.S., and that's what all of my ancestry is, it's starting to get harder and harder to find people that aren't already in tree, to find these new people to add into tree. They used to be a lot easier to find. They're still there, but it takes a lot more work. And this is where a program like Pizilla is really good. Well, I was working with a group prior to the call that we received to work in the area. And it was with a group that was working on English records, trying to take the 1911 British census and turn that census into family groups on tree so that there would be names there for people to use, because in the British Isles, only about 15% of that 1911 census is actually in tree. The other 85% of the people on that census are yet to be in tree. Here in the US, it's the exact opposite. They told us about a year ago that the 1910 census for the US, about 85% of the people on that census are already in tree. And so, if you're LDS and you're doing temple work, that doesn't mean they're all done, but it means 85% of those people are there and a good portion of them are going to be done. So there's a real implication there that you're going to have to start realizing. If you haven't noticed already, it's going to get harder and harder to find new people in tree. The only thing we have going for us is the fact that we work with that 110-year rule. So each year, another year of history opens up to us. But I think we're going to find that we're going to have to make some changes in what we do. And we're going to have to stop relying on the census and things like that. We're going to have to probably start looking at more obscure records, looking for those people that slipped, through the rocks, that fell through the cracks. I did that today, and I found a record that had a couple of children. Found it on Find a Grave. Found a couple of children buried in this family that looked like it was complete. And these kids are not in Family Search, and they're not on censuses because they fell in between the censuses and just lived a short period of time. We may find ourselves teaching our people to spend more time correcting tree, making sure that things are standardized, that we've got the most accurate information showing, teaching them how to compare what the sources are and what the sources say against what's on the vital records information. So it's just something to think about as you start working in tree, and you start realizing, at least when you're working with people with US ancestors, that it's not as easy as it used to be to find new names to add. You still find some that are in there that aren't done, some that are in there and reserved to be shared with the temple that you can reserve. But the actual process of adding new people is getting trickier and trickier. Okay, so what is this program, Pizilla? It's what we call a third-party program. It was developed by an outside programmer, and it uses the Family Search data set and all the programming that goes with Family Search so that it interfaces with Family Search. Its goal is to create what they call a hyper-condensed visual family tree. What that means is on a small screen, you're going to see a lot of your family. And so it allows you to survey a big portion of your tree, probably more than you've ever been able to see at one time on a single screen. And it can do both pedigrees and descents. And so we'll show you both descendant views and pedigree views, and we're going to go through the different parts of this program. Couple of caveats. First is Pizilla uses the records at Family Search and Tree. So what you see on Pizilla is what's in Tree for good or bad. If the data in Tree is bad, false, incorrect, whatever, you're going to see bad, false information. So beware of that. It doesn't guarantee you that the data you're seeing is correct. And the second thing is, especially if you're doing this to take names to the temple, you've got a responsibility, not just to find somebody, but to verify them, to go through and get extra sources, make sure they really exist, that they really fit in the program, and they really aren't in Tree. Because we know as we add more sources to people, often duplicates show up. So that's just a couple of caveats. Don't get carried away. It's just like Ordinances Ready. When you get a name from Ordinances Ready, you shouldn't just say, okay, great, I'll take it to the temple. I'd say, let's stop and look at it and check it out, make sure it's okay. Then we'll take the name, take the person to the temple. Okay, so let's explore Pizilla. This is the home page. So if you go to the right page, this is what it looks like. You'll have trouble because spelling counts, and this is a strange spelling. It's P-U-Z-Z-I-L-L-A. And it's org. You can put com and it'll still direct you here. They were smart enough to buy the com version so you don't get a knockoff site. It'll take you to Pizilla.org. And when you first go there, there's a chance at the bottom of the page to view a tutorial, which will teach you a little bit about it, like what we're doing. And at the top, there's a how-to section where you can also see some other tutorials that they have put together to help you to kind of understand it. Now, to sign in, there's two places to sign in. One's the great big bar there that says sign in with your Family Search credentials, and the other one's the little one in the upper right. So I guess they for the people that look in the middle of the screen, you get one way to find it, and for those of us that routinely go to the upper right corner, they put it there too to make sure you didn't miss it. Okay, the first time you sign in any day that you come in, or after a long break in a day, you're going to be asked to give permission. And this is the standard third-party program permission thing that has to be filled out. It essentially just says that Pizilla wants permission to use your account at Family Search. And all third-party products make you do this. So you have to click OK, or you don't get to use the program. Okay, and when you go in, the first thing it does is it builds your tree. Now I'm going to show you first the basic program. There's a free or basic version and there's a pay version. So we're going to start by showing you the free version and what you can do with it. This you can use straight off of your phone or off of your computer just by going to the website and signing in. You don't have to do anything else. But like I said, the first thing it does is it builds a tree for you because it's signed in as you. It knows who you are. So it goes to Family Search and builds your tree. You're the person with the little circle around them at the bottom of that tree design. And the people on that tree, the red dots are females, the blue dots are males, and these are your ancestors based on what's showing in tree. And we'll show you in a minute, when you mouse over those dots, a box pops up for each dot telling you who the people are so that you can actually see who they are. They're not going to leave you guessing like it appears to be right now. Okay, the tree can be set for anywhere between 0, which means you'd have no tree, just you, and 12 generations, which would be so much it would really be crowded. And in the box over here, which is the left side of the screen, it's set right now for 8. The default, I believe, is 6. But you can change that number to whatever number of generations you want to have show, up to 12 generations. And it has the ID of the person that's being used. And you can change that ID number by clicking Change ID to any deceased person. You can't change it to like your wife's ID or your husband's ID if they're alive. It can't find living people other than you because it found you through your account. But you could go to like your husband's mother or grandfather or somebody who's dead, and you could build their tree that way. Okay. And that works too, like if you're working with a patron. You can go to the patron's deceased relatives and build the tree and use Bozilla with their records. Okay, on the bottom left, there's a box there, and it shows you how you're related to the person that's in the starting position, which of course in this case is you. So it doesn't really show anything, but if you were going out and picking one of those dots and saying, give me the ancestors of that person, then it would tell you from that person back to you the list of relatives. And what's nice about this program is every time you open up a new screen, it literally opens up a new screen. It doesn't wipe out the previous ones. So you could end up, you have a whole string of tabs, but the nice thing is the tabs are still there. So you can go back to one that you were working on before. Okay, there's a lot of filtering in this program where you can filter certain things to see different things. There are 3 filters that work with the free version. One of them is what's called born less than 110. They are gray boxes, and if you look down at the 2 people right above me here, my parents, you'll see that they are, at the time this was made, were both under 110 years of age. And so they have little gray boxes above them. And for those of us that are LDS, we know that's the time frame that says we need to have permission to do the work, temple work for these people. So it will show you that automatically for anybody on the screen. Anybody with a gray box is born inside of 110 years. Excuse me. The second filter is yellow, and that's died less than age 16, died at 16 or younger. And they do that for us because in general, most people that died before the age of 17 probably didn't marry, didn't have kids. I actually had one of these show up on a pedigree chart once of mine. It turned out the people had entered the dates wrong, and the death date was incorrect, and it made her actually born before she, or die before she was born. They missed the year by 100 years. So anyway, generally when you see these yellow ones, these yellow people marked with the yellow box, they're dead-end people. It won't be much value to search them out unless we're looking to see if that death date is accurate or not. And if we're looking to see if they have children, spouses and children, the odds are they don't. And then the last one is called targets. If I turn that on, anybody who is a dead-end person, an end-of-line person, on a pedigree chart, it means they don't have parents. On the descendancy chart, it means they don't have children. They will have a little red box if we turn on targets. And that helps draw your eye to the people that you probably are going to want to work with the most. Okay, so if I turn targets on this pedigree chart, it shows you every place in the tree where Family Search says the tree ends. All those people with the red boxes are people that don't have any parents. And so I can then go to them. I know that the two furthest on the right are mistakes, that when this screenshot was taken for whatever reason, a couple of my ancestors had their ancestors erased. And so I knew there was a problem there. So I had to go back in and fix the tree. But that's one of the values for this program. So it really helps you to see things in a big picture, and I can work through this and remove any of those that don't belong because I can see where the problems are. From this screen here, I don't have to dig around in tree to find it. Okay, now if we click on a target, clicking on a target. So I brought up that screen where it had people that were dead ends, and over in that green circle up in the upper right corner, I clicked on Matthew McDowell. It turns his little square into a green square, which I wish they'd use a different color, but that's what they use. They also use green for something else, but at this point, the green lets me know I've clicked on him. And when I do that, I get this little box that's right next to it that says Matthew McDowell, gives his ID, gives his birth and death dates, and a little bit about the place. And then it tells me that I can do 3 different things. I can either view his descendants, or I can view his ancestors, which in this case is not going to be anything because that's why I picked him. He's a person who's a target. He doesn't have ancestors. Or I can view his family in tree. It will take me directly into tree and open up tree in my browser and have me on his page. Those are the 3 main things we're going to be doing when we work with people in tree in this Bazilla program. We'll go find a person we're interested in. We'll either ask to see their descendants or their ancestors, or most of the time we're going to want to view them in tree so that we can work on them. Okay, now on the left-hand side, they're actually in the middle of the screen, but to the left of the tree is that left-hand side of the page. And this time you can see that it's showing me how to get from me to Matthew McDowell, my ancestor. And it shows me that I go through me, then my father, my grandfather, my great-grandmother, great-great-grandmother, and then I get to my 3rd great-grandfather, Matthew. And so it's right there for me. When you're working with a patron, this is great because you can do copy and paste of that and put it in your notes for the people if you're going to want to work on Matthew McDowell, because this will show you exactly how to get to Matthew McDowell from your patron or from the first person on the screen that you're working on. Okay, a key point here now. We're using Bazilla to see the big picture. In this case, we're identifying dead-end ancestors. Okay, we're going to want to go into tree and try adding sources, looking at the suggested hints and adding them. And then hopefully we will add people into tree. That's what we're trying to do. Now, we could also, if we're interested, since we can't see it here, if we wanted to, we could change the view. And instead of trying to work on Matthew and build the tree back, we might want to click on his descendants and see what that looks like. So I clicked on descendants, and this is the descendant view for Matthew. Matthew McDowell is this person in the middle of the screen. His children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchildren are in concentric circles surrounding him. And at first it doesn't look too obvious. So I added some colored circles to help you a little bit. So I drew a yellow circle. Here's Matthew. I drew a yellow circle around him that touches his 4 children. He has 3 daughters and 1 son in his family and tree. And since this is a descendancy, it's showing you descent. 2 of those children have descendants. This one up here, this one down here. The next circle out is the blue circle. Those are his grandchildren. So all the dots that fall on this blue circle are his grandchildren. Then the next circle out is red, and that shows his great-grandchildren. And then on the very outside, and the descendancy will never go beyond 4 generations. On the very outside row is Matthew's great-great-grandkids. So it's kind of organized, and after a while, you'll get used to seeing this, and it'll be easier to view it. When you first come into it, it really can look strange. And if you're not a visual person, it's a very difficult chart to follow. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Now, there is a yellow line also from Matthew. You see the yellow line I'm tracing right now. That yellow line will eventually go to me. This is showing the person whose account we're working in, or the person who was set with the ID for this chart that's being shown right now. This is the route back to that person, assuming we're in a tree there, chart that will take you back to that person. So I kind of call that the yellow brick road since it's yellow. Okay. A few of the kids here have yellow boxes. See the yellow box there, yellow box there, a yellow box over here. Remember, that means those are children who died before the age of 16. This is actually a pretty good chart. You'd be surprised. It's amazing how many children died before the age of 16, especially back in the 1800s, even early 1900s. The mortality rate was very high. This is actually not a bad chart. Okay, targets. So let's turn targets on this chart. And so we have those red circles, but which means they're females there. But a lot of people, when I turned on targets and this had lit up red, now have red boxes by them. These are all people that are the end of the line people, the people that we most likely are going to want to check out to see if we can add new names into the tree. The furthest generation out, the people way up here and the people over here, will never show targets because they technically cut off all the descendants from there on down, and they have no way of telling whether they severed it or there were none at this point. So they just can't show you targets in the furthest generation. Okay, now you can also, targets can be set to a certain location. I could say, I only want to see people who are target people who are, let's say, from Missouri. And I could put Missouri in there, and the only red targets that'll show up are people that were either born or died in Missouri. Or I could say, give me target people born between 1850 and 1880. And it would only show me the people that are targets that have births in that range of years. So I can cut this down to something that maybe I'm willing to work in. 1850 to 1880 would be good because of the censuses that I could use on those people. And then notice that what I've done here is I took a pedigree chart back from me to Matthew McDowell, and now I'm in a descendants chart, and it takes Matthew McDowell down, and I actually clicked on somebody, and that's why it takes it down to a James Ewing. but that doesn't matter. But the thing is, it will show you the prior route and the route on this particular tree or this particular descent that I'm actually working in. Okay, let's see what we can do with this screen. So I went out in the corner of it and I picked a target person. I went to John Bond Jenkins and I picked him because he's a target, which means he's a dead end. When I looked at him, he had a birth of 1831 and a death of 1910, which means he lived quite a while. 1910's late enough that I might get lucky and find a death certificate, and sure enough, I did. And that particular death certificate, we're not going to show you the details. We'll just tell you, in this case, what happened. That death certificate named his parents, so we knew he's legit. He belongs to this family. He matches his mother and father that are in the tree. And it named a wife, which was not in tree because he was not showing with a wife. So I followed that up thinking, well, let's see what's on 1880, as that would make him 49 years old. And sure enough, I found him on the 1880 census with his wife and 7 children that weren't in tree. And after researching them and putting them in tree and adding sources and rechecking for duplicates, it appeared that all these people were new to tree. So beyond John, we added 8 new people to tree. And it was as simple as that. That's how the system is designed to work. You find dead ends, you check their records, and if you're lucky, you get something like this to come out of it. It's like fishing. It doesn't always work this easy, believe me. And this is one reason I keep these old records, because it's a lot harder now, it seems. At least in my case, in my tree, it's not as simple as it used to be. Okay, now that's the free version. Let's switch over and show you what you can get for $39 a year extra. Okay, because the pay version costs that much money a year. Seems like a lot, but there's some good things that come with it. And there's some nice facts. One is you can use it at a family search center for free, the pay version. When you go to your local family search center, you're going to be able to use Pizilla and use all the features of it for free because it's installed there and it's intended to use that way. The other thing that's nice about this paid version is if one person in the family buys it, everybody else in the immediate family can use it under that person's account. They'll have to sign in as that person, but mom can use it. If dad buys it, mom can use it, and each of the kids can use it. And that means even the married kids. As long as they're children of the person that bought it, the owner of the company says this is perfectly fine. They want people using their product. They're not trying to see how much money they can make. They need some money to continue to operate. They have to pay for bandwidth because you're using their website and everything's coming through their website to your computer or phone. And so that's what the money's for, is to pay for that. The rest of it, the labor they put into it and stuff, is pretty much just gratis. Okay, but everybody in the family can have the use of this. The only catch is they have to sign in as the person who bought it. So they have to know the username and password for the person that bought it. And then they can change the ID of the person they're searching for somebody that they want. Okay, if you use it regularly, $39.95 is a great value. It's one of the few things I pay for. Okay, so let's look at some of those things that are inside the red circle, because those are the pay filters. Okay, one of them is ordinances. When you click on that, it's going to show you in the chart that you have on the screen everybody that has at least one ordinance that needs to be done. And so you can see in this case, there's a lot of people that have little green boxes. Now remember, when you see a little green box with a gray box on the end, that's a person born inside the last 110 years. Those are people that need permission. There'll be a lot of those. But then there are others, like in the red circle, there's people there that have green boxes and they don't have the little gray ones, so they're far enough back. Okay, this tree's kind of unusual that it has so many. Okay, so I picked this child right here because you can see their little circles, dark green. Her name's Anna Coleman. She was born in 1878 in New Jersey. And she and her siblings, several of her siblings, all show dead ends. There's targets, and they show the need for ordinances. And when I got done, they all needed all their work, and a couple of them had spouses. You don't see spouses on these descents. A couple of them have spouses, and those spouses weren't done either. So there were 6 people there that needed all their work done. Kind of unusual, but it was something that popped up. So all I had to do is just do a little extra research, make sure these people are good. I don't remember if they had sources attached or not, but I made sure they had some. And then I was able to reserve them. Okay, another feature, and I love this feature, is called My Changes. Anytime you go into a person and tree and make a change, you leave that footprint. You leave your name with the change of the birth date or the merge or the source that you attached or whatever it was you did. This program can go in and look at a record and see if your name is anywhere in that record. And if it is, it'll mark it as you changed it. In other words, I'll be able to see my changes. So I took this particular pedigree chart of Christian Lessig, or descent chart of Christian, and I've been working on it. And so I said, show me my changes. And now I see I've virtually been on almost every single person in this part of the tree. And I skipped a few people here, or it could have been that I just didn't find anything on those 4 people. And I've done a little bit of work here, and it looks like I'm ready to go here. See, in other words, you can make a record of saying, okay, I'm on Christian Lessig's descent, and I know his ID number because here it is right there. Just make a note of it. I come back tomorrow. I change the ID to Christian Lessig and say, show me his descent, click my changes, and I know right where to go to start working today. I'm going to come right here and start working. So that's how this can be used. And there's no other place in Family Search that you're going to be able to do this. This is a really neat feature if you're working systematically through a tree. Possible duplicates. This is also something you can't find anywhere else. The only other way to find possible duplicates is to look at the people in tree one at a time and see if in their person page it says there's a possible duplicate. For here, I can click possible duplicate, and it's going to show me everybody on that chart, whoops, who needs to have possible duplicates checked. I clicked on Norman Lessig right here. He's a possible duplicate person. That means I need to probably go check him. I don't know why I circled the other one, but this is another person with a possible duplicate. Here's a person with a possible duplicate. Now, this one is not a possible duplicate. That's a gray box that says inside the last 110 years. So be careful. That's a gray box for born inside 110. These are light blue boxes that mean there's a possible duplicate there. Now, this is possible duplicates that Family Search has shown. That doesn't mean they really necessarily are possible duplicates, but usually the majority of the time when Family Search says there's a possible duplicate, there really is. Occasionally not, but there really is. The thing that's scary, though, is the fact that there's a lot of people here that don't show possible duplicates. But that doesn't mean there isn't one in tree. You've got to be careful. A lot of times those possible duplicates are lurking, and they only show up after you add some sources to people and then do a search for possible duplicates. So anyway, this is a feature I love. And when you're fixing them up, A, cleans the record up, and it might even bring in some new people into the tree or into this particular descendancy. Okay, you can also do search where you can identify something you want searched for. So I have my pedigree chart up, and I said, I want to see who's born and who lived or was either born or died in Pennsylvania. And this whole section of my pedigree, except for this one little section, showed up that way. And that's because my mother's side of the family is mostly Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania Dutch on top of it, a little English. I could set it for a time range, or I could put some ID in there. There's several different things I could do. I could make the place more specific or more broad. I could say United States, or I could say Sweden, or I could say Manchester or Manchester, England. And it will pull up people that have that information. Or I could say, I just want to see the people that were born between 1850, 1880 again. Something like that. So search is a very useful feature. Okay, sources. I can also click on the source filter, and it's going to show me every person in that chart that has at least one source attached. And so what I'm usually looking for when I do the source is for the people that don't have them. And you can see in that blue circle, here's a family that has a whole group of people and nobody has any sources. That's going to be a family I'm going to want to play with and see what's going on, because it looks like everybody else has been heavily researched, or at least has had some researching. And notice all the yellows, children that died young, quite a few. Okay, so I did another search, and in this case, I put in just the letters KW, because on records and Family Search, when they start with the KW, they generally represent members of the LDS Church. And when their records were put into tree, they were assigned because they were all dumped at the same time. They happened to be using numbers that started with KW. Well, that chart right there is pretty much exactly my LDS ancestry. That's all I have of my pedigree that's LDS. Everything else are people that eventually came into the church through a descendant being baptized, or my non-LDS side. My mother was a convert. So my mother down here has no green boxes on any of her ancestors. That's an example of what you can do. Hints, it will show you all the people that have hints. And so you can go around, because hints tend to lead us to new people. You know exactly the people on that chart that you want to look at. And you really want to go to people that are hints that don't have any descendants in this case, since this is a descendancy, because you know those people will be good ones to check hopefully those hints will be something really useful to you. You can also do a search in those hints that'll search up to 10 hints, and most people don't have 10 hints, so you're okay. In most cases, it'll search all of them. But you can put a hint type in there. You can put like census and then click search hints, and it'll go through this chart and leave you with orange boxes for people that have hints to a census. So there's some real nice ways you can filter this program. They also have the last new thing they've added is one that's called New Person. And this is a tricky one. I'm not real sold on it. I think I can do more use faster doing it my way, working with these other filters, but they've created a totally automated system to find new people for you. The first time you click on New Person, you're going to have to go in and add a Chrome extension to Pizilla. And they have a little link here. You just click on that, and it adds this extension into Pizilla so that you can use this feature. Then what you do is you load hints first, then you click on New Person. Once hints are showing, you click on New Person, and then here's what you're going to do. You're either going to go out and eat dinner, go sit down at the table and have dinner, watch a football game, go to Costco, whatever you want to do, but do something that's going to take an hour or two, because this thing's going to take an incredible amount of time if you're having it go through a real detailed chart of a lot of people, because it's got a lot of stuff to look at, trying to find you where a hint will actually add somebody to tree that they're confident in. And when they're done, hopefully your chart will have some little black boxes, and these will be people in tree who have a hint that you can add somebody to the family from. So in this case, this is Phoebe Palmer here, and she has a 1910 census. And if you click on that census, it's going to take you to her record, and doing that census and running it through Source Linker, you should be able to add at least one person or more. So it's an automated system to help you. Quite frankly, I'm not totally sold on it. I'd rather just do it my way. This takes a lot of time. You have to be very patient. Okay, and then again, they give you a disclaimer saying, hey, be careful what you do here. Okay, so let's do a couple of demos real quick here. So things that I do when I'm going to go work in Pizilla is I'm going to find that if I go back in time, if I'm doing descendancy work, which is what we do most of the time here, I'm going to go back into the people that are born in the late 1700s. I'm going to probably pick a line that I think is less researched, and a line that's probably in the US only because I'm a US researcher, though we talked about how it's getting harder and harder. And I can go back further than the initial tree. And if you're working with youth, you'll definitely have to go back into a second tree probably, because they could have 4 or 5 generations just getting back to the 1940s or 30s. Okay, and then try to make sure the tree appears to be accurate. If nothing else, at least run the possible duplicate feature. Run that filter and make sure the line you're working on doesn't have people that have possible duplicates, because that could be a red flag that there's a problem. Okay, so here's my first example. I'm going to go back to my ancestor, Daniel Sands. And I'm going to say, okay, he's born 1749. He's on my mother's side of the family, so she's a convert. There's no LDS people in this direct line anyway. Relatives have joined, but none of my direct ancestors. And I'm going to do his descendants. And so here's his descendant chart. And so I went through and I looked at it and I said, okay, I want to pick somebody. And so I clicked on Michael Sands. I liked Michael because going down the tree here, his father was one of 3 kids. His father only shows Michael as a child, and Michael only shows one daughter as a child. And I thought, this looks like a line that's probably not complete. So I decided, let's view this family in tree. So here's what Michael is in tree. It was Michael Sands with Ann Hoffman, his wife. He was born in 1799. She was born in 1818, which often could mean maybe she's a second wife. And there's one child, Hannah, born in 1842. Okay, now that was nice because Hannah lives to 1916. If she's born in 1842, she's alive in 1850. So if you know anything about U.S. Census records, 1850 is the first census record where children show up. So I should be able to find this family because Hannah's going to be in there. And hopefully Michael and Ann are still alive and they show up. And so I'll be able to go into search records at Family Search and see if I can find an 1850 census for Michael. And when I did that, sure enough, the very first record on the list is a Michael Sands 1850 census. Michael born in 1799. That's the exact year that I'm looking for. They live in Berks County, and that's where in Pennsylvania this family was from. The first other person named is Ann. That should be his wife. And then there's a bunch of other people listed there. So I want to look at this family. It's not been attached to anybody. There's no little tree symbol to tell me. So I go to the transcription, and these are old versions, so I'm sorry, but this is the way it used to look like, the way the transcription looked. We have Michael, Ann, and way down here is Hannah M. Sands, age 8, which would be the 8-year-old Hannah. And then there's all these other people. This is a gold mine, assuming they're children. The trouble is, we don't know because on the 1850 census, relationships are not shown. So we need to approach this a little bit careful. So I've got a dilemma. Do I go source them all? And I don't. I say, okay, let's do it one child at a time, making sure that we really are doing it right and putting children in the right family. Because these could be grandkids, they could be cousins, they could be foster children, who knows? Nieces, nephews. So I said, okay, let's look at this careful and pick somebody to work on. Because all I know right now is Michael, Ann, and Hannah really go together. So I looked at them and I chose the oddest name, Washington. Not George Washington, but just plain Washington Sands. I thought if I can find him, if I find a Washington Sands, I've probably got my guy. Let's test this family with this child. He appears to be a child. He's the second one in the list. So let's see what we can do. So I decided let's go over to Ancestry because what I really need is I need to verify that he belongs as a child. I need a record that will name his parents. Death certificates name parents if the parents are known. Pennsylvania's death certificates are at Ancestry starting in 1906. So I said, let's take a chance. This guy lived to be 70-something and see if he has a death certificate. And lo and behold, I found a Washington Sands born in 1831 in Berks County who lived till 1914. He's in Chester County now. His father's Michael Sands and his mother's Ann Huffman. Instead of Hoffman, it's Huffman. I can live with that. And so this verifies that the Washington Sands that died in 1914 is my Washington. Now my question is, did he get married? There's no wife named on the death certificate. Was he ever married, or did he live single? So I decided, let's go look at the 1880 census, because that has relationships. And on the 1880, I was able to find him, Washington, with a wife, Elizabeth, no children, just a servant, Oliver Fox. And that was the whole family. So I searched 1910, 1900. The 1900 census is nice because it tells you how many children the wife had, and the wife stated, Elizabeth stated, she never had any children. So this appeared to be a dead-end family, but at least I've got Washington and a wife, Elizabeth. But who's Elizabeth? That's a problem. You know how it is, needing to find people's last names. So I decided, let's start by cheating a little bit. We'll go over to the trees at Ancestry and see if I can find this family and see if anybody has them and knows what her last name is, or at least can give me a suggestion. And sure enough, there was one tree. And on that tree, the wife's name was given as Elizabeth Sheeler. Kind of an odd name. I said, okay, let's go with that. Let's check her. Since we had good luck with the husband on death certificates, let's try Elizabeth on death certificates. And sure enough, I found an Elizabeth Sands, nee Sheeler, who was born in 1833, dies in Berks County on the 7th of March, 1906. Bless her heart, she hung on until 1906 when they started death certificates. She was in there as one of the first death certificates in the state of Pennsylvania. It's only been going since the 1st of January. So 3 months and 6 days later, she died. Father Henry Sheeler, Mother Nancy Robinson, and on the certificate, it names her husband. Gee, I wonder what his name is. Oh, yes, it's Washington Sands. So there's no question, this is my gal. So I've got Washington and his wife pinned down. So what do? I go through, I now can do the source tracker for source linker for the 1850 census and add Michael, Ann, Washington, and Hannah into tree. That creates Washington. I can go to the 1880 census and source it and add Elizabeth to Washington as a wife. And then I can go and add the death certificates using RecordSeek from Ancestry and bring those into Family Search, run duplicate searches, and have my family. So what did I find out? I found out that the parents, Michael and Ann Huffman, their work wasn't done. In Find a Grave, I was able to get their full birth and death dates through records that were attached to their memorials. And then, it's not even essential to get full dates, but I like to try to get that. And then in this particular family, so besides Michael and Ann needing temple work, besides Michael and Ann needing temple work, neither William, Elizabeth, or Hannah had work done. So they all needed work. So I had clean sheet there for family to get their work done. And nobody had ever had a thing done to them yet. Today, this is what that descent of Michael looks like with his 12 children. Not all 12 are on there yet even, but this is what it looked like the last time I took a screenshot of their descent. Okay, we'll do one other one. First thing, notice the only things I used the records at Family Search. I just did a simple search of the records. I went to Ancestry. I did one little look at a public tree, and I looked for death certificates, and that's all I did there. Find a Grave got used for the parents. And I did do a search with quotes, Washington Sands and Elizabeth Sheeler, to see what would come up on that. That's all I did. Those are the only things I use. You don't have to be a heavy-duty researcher to bring up and find names. Just a few simple things using Family Search, Ancestry, Find a Grave mainly, and occasionally Google. Okay, one other family, and we're running short on time here. I went to James Sands, who was the father of Michael, and said, let's work on that family. And I decided that I wanted to get rid of the Michael part of the line. So I highlighted Michael. This is our Michael that we've been working from now. And I click over here on hide or show. The first time you click on it, it cuts it out. So that really reduced the chart. And I had just a few people showing. And so I wanted to pick one of these few people to work on. So I picked William D. Sands. He lives to be 81. And so I click on View Him in Tree. And he shows up by himself, no children, no wife. I look at his sources, and it shows there were 6 of them, so I pulled them all up. One of them is from the Historical Society of Pennsylvania. It's a transcription of a cemetery where he supposedly is buried. So I wanted to look at that. And there he is, William D. Sands, with the birth and death that we were aware of, and an Emma Sands right next to him who's 4 years younger. Generally, people are buried together as families. The assumption will be right now, this may be his wife. So how can we verify that? Went to the 1870 census, and here he was, William D. Sands with Emma. They're married, even though it doesn't say they're married. They're married because this column over here is what month were you married in if you were married inside the last year. This is a census that was done in August, and they were married in May. They're living in the home of a Mary Bowman, who has a daughter, apparently a daughter, Sally. The assumption is Emma's probably a sister of Sally's. Now, if you go back a page, here's Mary Bowman buried right next to Emma. So yeah, you almost have to think, yep, this is a daughter. But I don't have proof yet. So what can we do? Well, let's put the census in, put Emma in as if she's the wife. And since the census said her name was Sands, we're going to leave it Sands. And it says we can create a person, so we'll create a person. As soon as we did that on William, he got some new sources, including the 1880 census. So I clicked on that. And this time it shows relationships. It says Emma's the wife. There's 2 kids now, Mary and William D. Jr., and a mother-in-law, Mary Bowman. So now I know for sure that Emma's last name is Bowman. And now because we have that, and we source this record, other hints showed up, and I end up finding the marriage record. And they were married in 1870 in Berks County, and it was William D. Sands and Emma Bowman. And so I was able to put this family together with correct names and do the temple work for most of the family members. One last thing, there is a secret feature. If you have the pay version, if you click Control-I while you have a screen up, the first time you click it, it'll change those dots into people's names. You'll be able to see all their names. Or she'd blow it up so you could actually read it. The next time you click Control-I, it'll change it to birth dates. You'll see their birth and death dates. The next time you click it, it'll change to their birthplace. And the next time you click it, it'll put it back on the standard view. So that's just a little hidden feature that, for whatever reason, the owners never really published that, but he showed it to me one time when I was at RootStack. So I hope you'll use Pizilla. It is a great way to help you in finding people. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.